Thank you for joining us for another opportunity of fellowship with This Is My Story, Testimonies that Move the Soul. I sent out a notice concerning some of the interesting accomplishments of young people. One person in particular whom I had in mind, and a particular interest who had thought that they would be able to join us. But unfortunately, circumstances were of such that they could not join us. I was notified on yesterday afternoon, but we thought we would go ahead and press forward, and it may be that next week we'll hear the backstory of one of the individuals whom we'll be happy to share with later. I think you'll enjoy some of this information, which is quite interesting. Kids, young people. How about young people 17 and younger, and what is known as or considered as a prodigy? I tell you, as we delved into this and began to talk, I couldn't help but think about some of your families and our families. Some of you have young people in your family, and you yourselves have had unbelievable experiences. I had the chance of sitting in on a MITHS class along with our granddaughter. Granddaughter is about to be a junior. She's been skipped and may want to skip her again. I don't know, but she has a very strong interest in cardio medicine. And I sat next to her in a mathematics class being taught by Dr. Michael Main, and he was dealing with calculus, and she was just all over the place with this, writing it down. And I finally looked at her after about an hour and 15 minutes, and I said, "Do you know what you're doing?" "Oh yes, Miss Debbie, I know what I'm doing. This is this and this and this." I say, "Oh my goodness." Shut the front door, the back door. She had it, and very, very proud of what was predominantly African-American kids sitting there on the campus in a campus-sponsored program headed up by its director, and it's a phenomenal program that's been going on over 25 years. That was just one.
One of the criteria for all those students was the fact that they all had to have 3.8 grade point.
That's right, 3.8 or higher.
Program.
Absolutely, 3.8 or higher. Well, that was for that program, but the fact of the matter is there's so many of them out there, and we thought that perhaps we could share some of those highlights with you today, even though they differ in faces and cultures and where they live and how they work. The common denominator, without a doubt, is this thing called the brain, that it seems that we really don't, what do they say? We only use about 10%.
Yeah.
And I'm working with not barely my 5 maybe, but the 10% is
You're
there.
5, I'm at 3.
No. And we are going to share with you some of the things that would have been shared about these kids and young people known as child prodigies, especially some of them that have been in recent years have been in the news, and some of their accomplishments. And as already noted, the brain, we hear about that in so many ways, but we were thinking about even down to the Wizard of Oz. The Scarecrow wanted a brain. And if you don't have a brain, you really are dealing with, or if you don't use your brain,
right,
then you are at a disadvantage.
Right.
And the brain is powerful. This thing called the mind, it is unbelievable how that mind functions. Even Ellen G. White in her writings addresses the mind. And there's a book, Mind, Personality, and it's unbelievable how our minds function and how they work. Well,
a mind is a terrible thing in a way.
Absolutely, that's the tagline from the United Negro College Fund, and it has stayed with them through the years. But the mind of a child is certainly so interesting. And children in and of themselves, you know, there have been a number of television shows. You remember back in the day, Bill Cosby had the show with the children, and he had the commercial where he had the kids dealing with the Jell-O and the pudding. And then years later, Steve Harvey had his own show where he did a program having to do with kids, and the kids say the craziest things. And we actually went to a couple of those. The kids, they will also surprise you. And it's amazing when they come up with some of these things. You're like, is that for real? Could that really be happening? Could that really be possible? Well, some of the information that we're going to share in pictures that we're going to share are actually true. You can look them up for yourself, of individuals of note who have accomplished unbelievable feats, and with the help of God have been successful and made an impact or left their thumbprint on the historical records of the world. And perhaps you know of some of those yourself. For instance, this young lady, Kathleen Holtz, I don't know if this is actually a real picture of her though, born in 1989. For those of you who cannot see the screen, I hope you can, but can we just start off with the fact that she graduated at age 15?
Wow.
Graduated, and I'm not talking about from high school. We're talking about from university. She graduated from age 15 from the Cal State University in Los Angeles. And that's after she started college at age 10.
Right.
Got her bachelor's in philosophy. And then that wasn't enough. She continued and went on to UCLA School of Law at 15. And this is what really got me. The kids were really harassing her. She was bullied. And would you believe that that was a thing that we found with a number of the stories of these young people, that they were bullied and they would take very strong steps and put in place certain intentional things for themselves so that they could protect themselves. And this young girl actually hid her age as long as she could because she was afraid of what the retaliation would be. And she was right. They found out who she was, how old she was, and they turned on her, was her exact word, and began to bully her and make it very, very difficult for her. She was recruited at age 17 to work for a firm. And it is so interesting because the firm that she ended up working for was actually a firm in Los Angeles that ended up being a law firm. And the youngest, this is the information that we received, the youngest to work at that law firm, the youngest in the country in 2007. She accomplished quite a bit and has an unbelievable history there to work with after having experienced such critical bullying. And we just want to be conscientious that it's not cool to bully, is it?
No.
Not at all. Well, let's continue. Sajur Britt is an accomplished cellist and an African young lady who has traveled in a number of circles with her musical talent. Superior. I still think the arts are important, don't you? Just as you watched your grandson last week, and we heard Jerry speak about Debbie Allen, and not just Debbie Allen, but you got the Lula Washington dance studio there, but the arts. It would appear, I don't know if the studies have confirmed, but those who participate in music and the arts seem to have a little bit, they seem to be more well-rounded. I don't know, I could be wrong, but let's continue. Then we got Eric May. Now this young man was born in February 28, 1981. He also graduated from the university there in what was not his hometown, but here in the US in 1995. And unbelievable his accomplishments as well. Born in Nova Scotia, and his dad was adamant that he be homeschooled because he's traveling and moving around throughout the US and the world. And so he decided that he should be homeschooled. And when it came time to consider him for school, he didn't have any historical records to consider. No track record that verified that he had been in school and that he had finished school and these were his grades. None whatsoever. So what they did was they had him take a test as we understand it, and he was able to successfully pass those exams. And you see, as is given here, his information is quite clear. A PhD from the University of Waterloo at age 20. And as a result of that, the youngest to be hired at the MIT, the youngest in the history to be hired at MIT, and then also one of the youngest to be the recipient of a $500,000 fellowship at age 22. And Eric Demain is a force to be reckoned with. And it turns out that his dad's careful consideration of homeschooling, there's something to be said about that young man. And then there's this man, young man, Jack Lucas. Now, I don't know if any of you have heard about Jack Lucas, but I found it so interesting. It's my understanding that Jack Lucas was 14 when he lied to the Marines to join. He was so interested in getting in the Marines. Did you break your neck to join the Marines?
No, they drafted.
They drafted you, huh? And you still didn't have to go, which was a blessing. But can you believe this young man? You all look this up for yourselves with any of these. Jack Lucas lied about his age, got into the Marines, and then snuck onto the boat. He stealed away onto the boat, snuck onto the boat that was headed over there to Iwo. Is that correct? Iwo Jima, if I'm not mistaken. Headed over to Iwo Jima, got there in the line of combat, and thrust himself on to the enemy, and actually took up one of the firearms, shot and killed someone, and all this at age 14 because he had lied. And then they found out the truth, but it didn't stop him at age 17 from giving him a Medal of Honor. And it is my understanding, as you see here, receiving the Medal of Honor is the youngest at age 17 to receive that Medal of Honor. Some of these young people are quite interesting.
Very much.
Lied. I don't know. And then you got Carson Huey. Carson Huey, born in July 2002, and he made news in Texas.
Yes, he did.
Made news in Texas because it is my understanding both not only Carson, but his brother as well is also a child prodigy. But Carson would make news by being the youngest to have graduated from Texas. That's right, Texas Christian University. And Carson not only graduated from there with a degree in physics, but he would go on and in 2 years get his master's in physics from the same school, the same university, and then go on to grad school where he is currently pursuing, as I understand, may have already received, I'm sure, his doctor of philosophy focused on a specialty in quantum physics.
One of the other things that he also accomplished, well, he had a double minor.
That's right.
And that double minor was in Mandarin Chinese and mathematics.
Can you believe it?
And the thing is, he was the youngest person to graduate in that state with those types of degrees.
Absolutely.
Unbelievable.
Absolutely. And then they were featured on a television show. They've been on a game show. He's worked with that. But you're right. This young man, African-American young man, has done a phenomenal job in representing, and Texas is proud. I understand he's still the youngest. And then speaking of young, would you believe Patty Duke? Remember her?
Oh, yeah.
Back in the day, Patty Duke, the youngest to receive an Oscar at age 16. Here she is receiving it. And she's also noted for having the smallest and shortest, or perhaps the shortest is what I say, the shortest speech.
Exceptions.
The shortest speech to ever receive anything. And what was her speech?
Thank you.
That's it. Thank you. It's kind of like what Jerry does sometimes. He tries to slip in a small prayer. He's supposed to be blessing the food. He says, Jesus wept. I said, that has nothing to do with the food. Can you give us a real blessing? Patty Duke.
Amen.
Yeah, okay, 3 words. Patty Duke at age 16, another one. And then we have this young lady. This young lady was born in June of 1998. And again, unbelievable feats that she accomplished. She started her high school at age 11 in Manchester, England, age 11. And then after graduating from high school, she started studying American at the American Military University. The American Military University, where she studied what? Intelligence analysis. Can you believe that? The youngest to graduate. She started at age 11 and then graduated at age 14 with a degree in intelligence analysis.
Right.
And as if that was not enough, she continued, went on to Harvard University at 13, and she worked on her master's, I believe, I understand, and her PhD simultaneously at 13. And then by age 15, she's the youngest in UK history to read for her PhD degree, the youngest for her PhD degree. And what are you going to say about that? She founded, I got to share this, the International Association of Child Prodigies to provide children an environment as they pursue their academic pursuits.
I think the most important thing for her was being a child prodigy. She was able to recognize and understand how they would feel, how they would be able to, she was cope with some of the problems that they experienced from the bullies.
Absolutely.
And I think that she felt it was in her power to create this environment so that it would help them to get through it a lot easier.
Absolutely.
Because I know that they experience so many negative things and projections of everything. People that, what's their projection or what do they think about you? That's very, very important to them.
This young man, 5-year-old from San Diego, not far from where we are, it is too funny. He's fooling around with his father's equipment and he finds a glitch in the software from Microsoft. But it didn't stop there. Microsoft realizes they've been hacked. Don't find out you've been hacked by a 5-year-old though.
Okay.
And they tested him, found out he passed their test and ended up eventually working, as is reported, seems to be a legitimate position where he does research and offers input. I'm laughing. The 5-year-old hacking. That probably happens more than we realize. But I understand it really did occur and is legitimate. Aaliyah was born in 2089. Now, Aaliyah has an interesting story. I didn't get a chance to talk to Dr. Main about this mathematics, but it's kind of hard to not talk about some of these things and catch mathematics. So here we have one for you, a BA in applied mathematics and then summa cum laude. At age 14, she graduated with this.
Exactly.
Not from high school, but from the university, Stony Brook University. And then at 17, went on to receive her master's, and that was in material science and engineering. Sorry for that typo there. And then February 2008, this was so interesting. She was appointed the position of international professor as research liaison. She's doing all of this, and the young lady has excelled tremendously. She is now listed in the Guinness World Record books as the youngest professor for this achievement. Now, this particular young lady, she took matters into her own hand when it came to that bullying, and I'm not mad at her for it. She said, enough of this bullying, right? And what did she do?
She took Taekwondo.
That's it. She started like your mom. His mom and I used to act like we were in Taekwondo, Kung Fu, but this girl meant business.
Okay.
She was sick and tired of being bullied, so she took Taekwondo and she got good, better than good. She went and got her black belt. And said, you want to come for me? Let me show you what I got.
Okay.
She got something for them to talk about. And needless to say, the word must have gone out. Don't bother that girl. She's got a black belt. But it seems to be that having young people in a setting that's so far advanced compared to them, it makes it a little bit challenging. It seems parents are rightfully concerned
Well,
about that.
it actually boils down to being jealous. Kind of like, people that wish they had the abilities that these young people have. They are very jealous of the fact that it comes easy for them.
Maybe
They
that's
have to
what it
study.
is. Maybe that's what it is. Like this young lady, Laura. Laura had an ambition to sail around the world by herself.
Hmm.
Now, I don't know how many parents are on the line or how many parents are going to co-sign your child coming to you and say, I have an idea. I want to get a boat and sail around the world
Right.
by myself.
Well,
And boy, you talk about being adventurous, being a daredevil. How about we just take you to go bungee jump?
okay.
How about that? We can do some skydiving or
Right.
no, she wants to sail around the world. She started at age 15. She was still sailing when her 16th birthday came. And needless to say, she's the youngest person to have sailed around the world in a year.
Wow.
And she did that 2011.
Right.
There's also a young lady who at 11 actually built a plane and decided that she wanted to go flying.
Wow.
I don't know. There's something to be said about what God enables some of them to have in terms of talent. But I'm reminded, I believe, that all of us have something that God has put in our hands.
Oh, yes.
To glorify him in some way, shape, or form. This young man, I just love him. I don't know why. Not that I could relate to him, but I just love the fact that I know he was on Oprah. He's been on a couple of other shows that are out there, but age 13, Gregory Robert Smith. And tell us about him.
Well, he graduated from Randolph-Macon College with a bachelor's in mathematics.
There's that math again.
Yeah, he completed most of his elementary school in 1 year. One year. Can you imagine?
1 year, all of his elementary school.
And 1 year, and then he moved on to high school.
Unbelievable.
By the time he was, 7 years old. When I was 7, I was in the 2nd grade. I think I was in the 2nd grade. See how bad that is? But anyway, I was in the 2nd grade. This guy graduated from high school at the age of 7. Then he enrolled in college at the age of 10.
Mercy.
Now, at 16, 6 years later, he earns a master's of science degree in mathematics from the University of Virginia.
Yep.
Unbelievable. Now, this is the kicker. This young man has been nominated for nominated 5 times.
That's right.
For the Nobel Peace Prize.
That's right. 5 times.
He got somebody's attention.
Someone's attention indeed. I'm still on the part that he finished most of his elementary school by the age of 7.
Oh,
I'm still on, and he did it in a year.
Right.
And by the age of 10, he's enrolling in college. Oh my. Well, let's continue. I love this story and I had to add it. One of my favorite, and of course, earlier this year, I had the auspicious honor of hosting, along with Dr. Rock, the Honorable Judge Mathis.
Yes.
And he is just so down to earth, in my opinion. I shared with someone just earlier this week, whenever I've spoken to him, he's just been so kind and so gracious. And for that, I just really appreciate him. But it is the backstory, and maybe not so much the backstory, but the story that he himself has shared. First of all, we know he's community-minded, right? Very interested in young men and women and their advancement, right, in terms of their rightful place in society. But did you know, or have you heard, that he himself, at age 16, 17 years old, had been in trouble? He had been in trouble, and he found himself in court with a concealed weapons charge. Right. A concealed weapons charge. And I think he's made no bones about it on his program. Judge Mathis in terms of his court program. And now he's got the new program, Mathis Family Matters. If you haven't seen it, it's interesting what's unfolding and how he's relating to this. But you know his background. It leads back to the church, the Seventh-day Adventist church there in Detroit, Michigan. I love how this story is handled because the judge who would have Gregory Mathis come before him with this concealed weapons charge could have thrown the book at him, as I understand it. But he didn't. What I understand is that he gave him an extremely lenient sentence.
Yep.
And what happened after that? What do they say? And the rest
is history.
That's what they say. And this story is great. And I want to say it exactly the way it is, because it was Judge Charles Kaufman, who represented the Third Circuit Court of Michigan, who would give him this lenient sentence. And now that teenager who was charged with that would become Judge Mathis, the youngest elected judge, I love it, in the 38th District Court of Detroit, the youngest.
Wow.
And 36, thank you. And of course, we know he would go on to become a television personality. I believe I understand the longest running court television show on television now. And of course, I've already made mention of the other story concerning his new program that has come out. But wow, what a story and a testament. It must have been the Holy Spirit moving upon that judge who felt compelled to let that be a lesser sentence and to see promise in him. And he went on to handle business.
But I think the most important thing about Judge Mathis and all those that may find themselves in his type of position, that in order for you to make a difference, you have to make a change within yourself.
Oh my.
If you don't make that change within yourself, you won't be able to have a story like this.
Yes.
Because it is Judge Mathis who made that change. Now, maybe the leniency on the sentences played a part in that, where he came to recognize that, you know, my life just flashed before me. And if I want to do something in life to make a difference, I have got to change from within. So maybe the Holy Spirit had an effect on him. And that is why he decided, you know what, I'm going to go on the straight and narrow from here on out. I'm going to do my best to try to be the type of person that my mother or God would like me to be.
Yes, surely. And of course, we know, we've heard him talk about his mother and his mother pleading with him to do some things. I understand he promised his mother he would enroll in school, and it wasn't long after that, if I'm not mistaken, his mother passed 6 months later. And she seemed to have been able to know that he had made a change. He had made a change. And isn't that a spiritual lesson for us? That when we surrender ourselves and what is in our hand, what he has placed in our hand, we surrender it to God, God can bless it and multiply it. Well, let's continue. Let's continue. We've got this young man. Tell us about him.
Well, Shoyano was born in 1990.
Yes.
This guy, he graduated at 12 years old in 2003 from Loyola. Of all universities in Chicago. Now, not only did he graduate, he was summa cum laude.
Again.
I mean, that's unbelievable. He entered the University of Chicago at Pritzker School of Medicine. So not only did he graduate at 12 years old, but he entered medical school.
Yes.
And in 2009, he's 18, he received his PhD.
Unbelievable.
In molecular genetics and cell biology. You know, there's something to be said about these individuals, because I can't even spell molecular genetics. And these guys are graduating in it and doing all kind of research that I think, and I'm thankful that they have the ability to do that, because maybe they will discover the cure for cancer and you know, all the other dementias and diseases that we have. But this young man graduated But while he was attending Chicago Pritzker School of Medicine, he received his MD
Yes.
medical at age 21 in
Unbelievable.
2012. I tell you, God has truly blessed them to not only use 10%, but 20 to 25 or even 30% of his
It's
brain.
an amazing story. Yano would become the second youngest MD in history, the second youngest medical doctor in history. The first would be Dr. Bala. And unbelievable what that would be. But Dr. Bala was at the age of 17, so it is reported. But Yano would go on to do big things. His sister, also a child prodigy, and she herself having gone to Roosevelt University with a bachelor's in biology as well as violin performance.
Yes.
And she was picked up by the Peabody Institute on Hopkins University. So we can see the impact of that and the discipline that that has offered. Then we've got this young man who's been right here under our noses here in Southern California. And tell us about him.
Moshe Kaikavalin. Well, Moshe was born in February on the 14th.
Yes, at Valentine's Day.
1998. This guy, he graduated from college at age 11.
Unbelievable.
In 2009 from East Los Angeles Community College. Now, think about that. 11 years old going to a community college. At 15, this guy received his bachelor's degree, which means he studied, but guess what it was in? Mathematics. Okay, but where was it from? UCLA,
Can
one
you
of the
believe?
top schools to get into. And that's what he did. Now, he ended up getting a job with NASA.
That's right.
And he got a job with NASA dealing with airplanes and drones.
Oh my goodness.
These guys are unbelievable.
So NASA discovered him. He had a chance to go work there. And 17 years old, he's working to develop surveillance technology. No wonder NASA picked him.
Right. But one thing I learned about him is that he hates when people call him a prodigy.
Yeah, he doesn't like it.
He did not like it. So he ended up taking up Taekwondo as well.
That's right.
And if you want to label him, he would like to be known as a student of Taekwondo.
That's right. That's right.
And that's why you see the picture here of him in a position of Taekwondo. But he hates when people recognize or even acknowledge that he was a genius or is.
He doesn't like that. He's also authored 2 books.
Oh, that's right.
He's a published author, 2 books, and he's got all these awards for Taekwondo, but he's unbelievably working on some high-tech stuff for NASA with surveillance. And then we've got a couple more we want to share with you. Laurent Simmons, and another one who's made headlines in terms of their accomplishments, but the second youngest in terms of their feat. But the headlines for a different purpose, because this young man, if I'm not mistaken, is the one who is interested in immortality.
Right.
And his interest is in replacing actual human parts for mechanical parts and coming up with a way where that can be immortal. And I don't know. What are your thoughts?
Well, my thoughts is he's an interesting fellow. You know, he thinks if he can create and develop that, you know, it's amazing what the mind can think of. But I think his whole thing is he wants to live forever. And if he thinks he can, God's going to probably remind him that that's not going to be something that is that's available. But you never know what they come up with. But a very, very bright young man. The thing about him is that he graduated at 11. He could have graduated at 10.
That's right. He could have graduated.
But, you know, being a child and having certain behaviors.
That's right.
You know, he chose not to and ended up graduating at 11 instead of 10. He would have been the youngest who ever graduated.
He would have been the youngest, but remember the school wouldn't accept him and he got upset. He told his parents no, he wanted to go to school. And then he ended up at the university, and the university accepted him, but by then he had already turned 11 and he was not too happy about that. But he has an interesting disposition about the philosophy. Here's another one of my favorites, and you can just almost envision Jay Leno here having a good time with this young man. He seems to be an approachable guy who's able to connect with kids, kind of like you.
Well,
You were noted earlier this week for your connection with young people, and the young man that you were sitting with is a bright young man and seems to have a lot of promise. What was the sense of humor that he shared with you, the humor that he shared with you?
the one about
The week.
2 days in a week.
That's right.
What 2 days in a week? I forget exactly how he put it.
Are the strongest.
Are the strongest.
Yes.
And then he said, well, it's Saturday and Sunday because Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday are, what did he say?
They're week.
They're
That's
weekdays.
the weekdays.
Those are weekdays.
Weekdays.
So,
And had us pondering and everybody trying to figure out, and he came up with that. Jaden, it's a shout out to you if you're watching right now. We're looking forward to spending more time with you. But Michael Kearney graduated, believe it or not, at age 10. Can you just fathom?
no.
At
I
age
can't.
10, what'd you have, a football?
Yeah.
You had a baseball bat?
My grandson's 10 years old right now.
Right?
I can't imagine him graduating from a university
And he graduated in University of South Alabama.
with a bachelor's in anthropology.
And that wasn't it. That wasn't it. What else would happen? He would go on to pursue additional education. I had to laugh because here he is graduating and he would be teaching at the university before he would even learn or even be able to have a driver's license. He's already teaching and doing unbelievable things. Of course, we noticed him on the Jay Leno show, but he would go on to Tennessee State, get his master's, and then a place where one of our relatives has attended school and graduated. He would earn his master's degree in computer science at Vanderbilt University there in Tennessee. And he has been kind of quiet lately, it seems. He kind of fell off the grid and been around in about 10 years or so. He's 38, has a family and a degree. And there's a lot more that could be said about these young people before I get into the last one. But let me share maybe 2 to 3 more with you about some of the things that we saw in terms of young people. The youngest person to ever graduate from the University of Michigan was 17 years old.
Wow.
17 years old. But unfortunately, that 17-year-old would later become a murderer. And so you have to have a balance.
Right.
You have to have a balance. You need to have a balance. And then the youngest person sentenced to death in the 20th century was wrongfully convicted at age 14 for the murder of 2 Caucasian girls, ages 7 and 11. His conviction was vacated in 2014 when a court ruled that he had not received a fair trial. The youngest to be convicted at age 14. And then by 2014, that conviction was vacated. That's good news for him. And then another young person that was legally executed in USA, and this is a horrible thing, legally executed at age 14 in 1944. But 70 years later, the whole thing was exonerated.
Wow.
It makes you wonder. Couple more tidbits before we get into the last one. Couple more tidbits. The youngest person, I had a slide for it, but I just have to mention it. The youngest person to ever be pregnant. I thought I had discovered it before, and I had a slide. I actually went to go read up on it because I was in shock, but it says, and I found it to confirm it, age 5. Did you hear that? Age 5. She was impregnated at age 4. She started a menstrual cycle at age 3.
Whoa.
What?
Crazy.
And gave birth at age 5. And I'm going to share this with you so you all can look it up for yourselves. Lena Medina, Lina Medina, the youngest person to ever give birth. And they took that child by C-section. You think? Oh, my stars. So there's some unusual things about some of the young people. The youngest person to summit Everest was an 8th grader. The oldest person to climb Everest was an 80-year-old, but the youngest was an 8th grader. And then how about this? 2 more things. John Singleton, the youngest individual to have been nominated for Academy Award as a director. And then can you believe this? Jay-Z,
about him,
African-American indeed, and we're proud of him for that. And then this one is also an African-American, Jay-Z and Beyonce. Their daughter has a unique distinction, Blue, the youngest individual to be listed for credits on a song, just 2 days old, and became the youngest person to ever appear on a billboard. Wow. Unbelievable. And then Tori Amos, the youngest to receive a full scholarship to the Peabody Institute. And there's so many others. 11-year-old Emily Rosa, the youngest to be a published author for the medical magazine, just 11 years old, and she's writing for the medical magazine. And you might think that it was just some little ABC something, but no, she was writing on alternative medicine. So there's a lot to be said about some of the accomplishments of these young people. But this young lady caught our attention and is responsible for having motivated us in our discussion so far. And we hope to hear a backstory of this next week, we hope. And if not, we'll go on. But her name is Alina. And Alina is from right here in Southern California, having been born in Fontana, I understand, in the Inland Empire. And this young lady has been talked about story after story after story. I believe starting in May, all kind of stories went out about her in May of 2022 when she made history. She has graduated, as I understand. She's been going to school at Arizona, and where else? Oakwood. And an exceptional young lady. She is, as I understand it, I believe the youngest to have been accepted by a medical school or welcome to join in a medical school. And I tell you what, we need to just stay tuned to watch her with what God is going to do with her, what will take place out of all the schools in the U.S. One of the schools she chose was Oakwood University, and there's more to come. There's more to come with this lady. And one of those things that has already unfolded for her is we heard about a young person with NASA. She too has been invited to work in conjunction with NASA. And there's more to be shared with that. And we're looking forward to seeing what will happen as a result of this unbelievable academic excellence that has been entrusted to her. Well, our time of sharing in regards to this has come to an end in reference to the young people and how God has blessed them, but it's a reminder that for us, we get a chance to work, whether it's in our church, in our community. For us, we work with Operation Reach Back to help out with young people. We already heard about Operation Reach Back at the beginning of the program when Jackie Ross graciously shared a concern concerning one of the young men that they have the privilege of working with. How about you that have joined us this afternoon? Are you taking out time to help a young person make a difference in their community or in their family or in their church?
Right.
Is there a way that you can assist in what takes place in the lives of these young people. There's so many different ways that we can make a difference. And I'm hoping that from this, you're inspired. If you see a young man or woman who seems to be exceptionally precocious, like we have a young lady named Helena. I don't know, Helena, if your mom is on, but Helena is something else. And she asked us one day, remember a couple years ago, to look around downstairs in our home. She was outside swimming. She came in. She says, I want to look around downstairs. Then she got through checking out everything. She said, okay, now I need to check upstairs. And I was so dumbfounded by what she said at age 6 or 7. But we know she's an exceptionally bright young lady who has a lot of promise. And I'm sure if you think about it, there's probably someone somewhere in your sphere of influence, in your home, in your neighborhood, in your family, in your church, your community, someone somewhere that could use a helping hand and a reminder of who God is when we entrust it in their hands. You got to teach these kids younger, or else they'll be like what I discovered, unfortunately. The youngest one to commit suicide was age 6. We don't want that. We want to encourage these young men and women to put God first, know the Bible. Yes, that's the book for me, because when all the other people fail, God is there and he will not fail. And if that's your foundation, then you've got a running start. Amen. And we hope that this has been a reminder and an encouragement that he still entrusts us with talent. They get older, and then there's more to come. Absolutely. That have been entrusted. And it must be true that the knowledge will increase. Right. But it also says men will run to and fro. So evidently that has taken place. But we've enjoyed our time with you this afternoon. And what are your thoughts on it? What thoughts do you have as we close out?
Well, we have to be very aware of our young people. We have to give them credit for being alert, for understanding what's going on in life. They are very much in touch with human behavior, yes, feelings, and understanding things based on what they see. So we have to give them credit and make sure that we recognize and not treat them as young people who really doesn't understand. Many of them do understand. Sometimes we have to really just kind of make sure that we don't allow ourselves to fall into that trap of not understanding or not talking to them to find out what's on their mind. Listen, I think, is really important. Listening does help, because you hear a lot of things once you hear what is being said, and it gives them an opportunity to be able to express themselves. Many young people can't do that. But if you allow them, just let them say what they have to say, and then help them understand what it is that they may be saying. If they're not advanced like some of these prodigies that we have. Remember, they may have been advanced in those different disciplines that they were advanced in, but it's when it comes to regular life, living their lives regularly as children should, they may not have that ability to do that. And that's where we as adults have to come in and help them recognize that they're still children, and recognize, not treat them based on the talent that they have, but treat them based on the age that they are, because we know how children develop at different ages. And if we're not careful, that's why sometimes we don't interact with our kids. By the time they become teenagers, they're really adults in their thinking, and we miss that. And we can't allow that to happen. We have to make sure that we stay in touch with our kids at all times, to make sure that they understand, that we understand that they are still human beings and that they're growing up, and then address them at those different levels so that they know that we are there with them. And then love will be the thing that will keep them together. And not only that, but keep God's first, because God will help you be able to raise them properly in the manner that he expects us to as parents.
Early, in the words of Steve Harvey, and that's the way I see it. Well, it's been such a delight to join in with you this time of fellowship, and we're going to pause and pray for our time together. Would you mind bowing your heads while we pray? Heavenly Father, thank you for this time of fellowship. Thank you for your faithfulness to us, and for the opportunity to be reminded of your goodness, your mercy, and your grace. Now, please bless everyone that is on the call at this time, their families, extended family, and otherwise, from the oldest to the youngest, and trust each one to you. It is our desire while we hear of these things that you have graciously bestowed upon us, that you continue to entrust us with wisdom and knowledge that we might be able to glorify you in word, action, and deed. Might you bless each one abundantly. May we be drawn closer to your word and your bosom as we hear these things. May we seek you first. May we put you first, and may we be granted favor after having done so. Please bless us as we prepare to depart. If time should last and your return not imminent, would you please allow us to be kept safe, our homes and our travels, all those who would gather tomorrow at Oakwood, give them traveling mercies and keep a hedge around each one until such time when we meet together again. In your son's name I pray, amen.
Amen.
Well, you know the saying, may the Lord bless you and keep you. May the Lord cause his face to shine upon you and grant you peace. That's our prayer and our desire for each one of you. Until such time, take care of yourselves and each other. Good to see you.
See you later.
Be blessed. Thank you for joining us once again. It has been so nice to have this time of fellowship with you. May the Lord bless and keep you and cause his face to shine upon you and grant you and yours peace. Until then, take care of yourselves and each other. For more information about this program, This Is My Story, Testimonies That Move the Soul, see us at our website. We look forward to seeing you next time. Take care.